5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are live. Hello and welcome to PropTechBuzz, a new age global PropTech platform that combines media, products, leadership, and community. But why to tell when I can show? So before I actually formally introduce my guest, I would quickly show you what PropTechBuzz is all about. Just give me a second. I'm going to share my screen here and present to you what PropTechBuzz is. As you can see, my screen, just a second. All right, here is, here is the home screen. And what you see here is, this is what we are trying to do is we are trying to get the entire ecosystem for global PropTech community, products, leadership, and community, all of them together. And as you can see here in the leadership hive, this is where we are bringing together the entire global ecosystem of leaders, PropTech leaders. They could be founders, CEOs, they could be investors. And we already have a good investor network onto our platform. We have a good VIPs, which are CEOs and founders from across the globe. We have a good representation from India, from Africa, and also USA is also our biggest, one of our biggest representation. So that is there. And not just that, we help match make investors to interesting startups. As you can see, we had Murli last time from Spire, and we got to introduce a lot of interesting startups to Murli. Also, we have a community here which is new but beginning to thrive. We are having some interesting AMAs on our community. We are having communities from across the globe. As you can see, there's a Thailand community that just got created, and we are having AMAs just like we are having AMAs today. So if you're a PropTech founder, what we have done is we have created channels across countries. We have created channels on topic based, like yesterday we had a very good topic based AMA for automated valuation modeling. We have topics for residential PropTech. We have topics for commercial PropTech. We also started a fundraising channel, which is very interesting, because what we are also doing is matchmaking. So yesterday we launched a fundraiser channel only for founders from India who are looking for a fund, and we have been getting a lot of good responses. So do join in. The core tenet of this platform is to be of help to other members in the global PropTech community. So we give scores and badges to members based on how helpful they are. So we are very different from LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is everything and to everybody. But what we are building is just to add more value to the community. So if you have not joined our platform, I would ask you all to just come over and explore and interestingly see possibilities that could come your way. With that, I end my promotion here of the platform, and let me welcome my guest here. My guest today is a head of investment and strategy at Aurum Proptech Limited, and he has overseen successful investments of more than 25 million over the past 1 year across 4 PropTech ventures. And in this journey, he has screened and evaluated over 100 plus PropTech ventures and startups. He's also responsible for managing Aurum's portfolio of 7 PropTech ventures while driving collaboration and governance among these companies. He has a rich background encompassing 18 plus years of corporate leadership experience spanning PropTech, EduTech, supply chain, telecom, and strategy consulting. And he has led diverse teams in business development, account management, and corporate strategy. He also holds an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad and a background in computer engineering from NIT Surat. He brings a comprehensive skill set to drive impactful business growth. So as you can see, he's no ordinary guest today. Hiren, welcome to PropTechBuzz. How are you doing today?
Very well, Ravi. Thank you so much for having me here. And
Yeah.
in fact, thank you so much for building the platform that you're building. It's a much needed, platform specific to the prop tech, and that's a global one, right? So I
Yes.
already see some really great people active on the platform. So all the best wishes to you, Ravi, to build and grow this much further.
Thank you so much, Hiren. You have been supportive from the very beginning. Always been encouraging. So we have some important questions and conversations to make here. I gave a brief intro about you. Maybe you could also add elements to which I did not touch for your introduction. So maybe a little bit of your personal background and your transition story into working for Aurum.
Yeah, I think what you shared was a good exec summary of what I am and what I have been doing. Uh, Primarily, as one could figure out, I have been spending bulk of my time in corporate strategy, function strategy, either as a consultant or as part of a corporate leadership team. I have spent good amount of time, around 5 6 years, leading business development teams also, right? And I, you know, like they say that doing sales is one of the best things that could happen to your career as a leader.
Yes.
And I also kind of reckon that that's probably one of the best days of my career, in terms of what we could deliver, and the results are more that instant gratification that you can see, right? So apart from sales, and having done the overall corporate stuff that I've been doing, I thought I should, jump into the Indian startup ecosystem at some point of time, and then and that took me to an edutech company. I spent some time there, which inspired me to start something on my own. So I had a couple of ideas. I tried to, kind of bring them to life, and I actually also, in a very informal capacity, work for a PropTech venture, which was started by one of my friends. And in those days, while promoting that PropTech firm, advising them, etc., is how I got in touch with this gentleman called Mr. Ashish Deora, right, who is a serial entrepreneur himself. And our conversations kind of led to a point where we thought that my experience of the strategy of working in a well governed environment, having taken businesses from a 1 to 11 kind of a journey, right? Those are things that would be relevant to what he's building in the Aurum Proptech ecosystem, right? And that's where I joined him, and today, as you kind of summarized, I look after not just investments as such. I look after the overall strategy of all the businesses that we have invested in. Overall, the Aurum Proptech strategy. I look after the entire ecosystem collaboration that happens within the portfolio of businesses that we have today. Partly look at how well governed these are. So corporate governance is one of the key things that I spend some time on, right? So those are broadly the things that I do, and that's how I have landed up here at PropTech. I hope that that gives you a better gist of what I've been doing so far.
Sure. You also made me curious by mentioning Ashish Deora. So I've heard of Ashish in so many circles. Maybe could you shed some light on his journey? Who Ashish is? And I know he is the CEO of Aurum Ventures, but a little bit about him for
Yeah,
those who do not know him.
no, absolutely. I think he's a visionary, right? He's a serial entrepreneur. His very early successes date back to early 2000s, when he was one of the pioneers of bringing in fiber optic technology in the enterprise domain into India. Post that, his I would say claim to fame was turnaround of what we know today as the SpiceJet Airlines, right? So he, along with two other co-founders, overtook a struggling airline, brought it back to life, and then he got in, kind of he moved on to the next venture, which is also very well known enterprise today as Renew Power, right? So again, he was one of the co-founders there, and then brought the company from the 0 to 1 journey there again. And as the business grew, and further investors came in, he took an exit. In parallel, he was building a real estate business as well, in right here in Mumbai, right? And so Capital Land, or Ascendas as them, right? So they have been a key client of Aurum Real Estate in the commercial space, and there's a good amount of residential and retail real estate that has been built under the Aurum Ventures. And it was during this real estate journey that he realized how deficient is the penetration of technology in real estate. And this was those thoughts had started coming to him actually much before uh, the 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 COVID struck the world. But the moment that happened, he was even far more convinced that PropTech needs to be driven, to be nurtured, to be kind of grown, and then specifically in India, right? So he took it up to as a challenge to build a PropTech ecosystem, right? And in the process, Aurum Proptech ecosystem came into being, right? So and then very early on, the first investments happened around May 2021, right? And there onwards, today we have this portfolio of seven odd PropTech business ventures under the Aurum Proptech umbrella.
Got it. Excellent. Let's now dig deeper into what Aurum Proptech is today. What's the story, its vision for PropTech? That would be nice to know.
Yeah. So as I said, this the story is, the genesis is the story of linked to Mr. Ashish Deora, but today it's a story of the serial entrepreneur and 12 other founders, PropTech founders, who all are collaborating together today to build India's largest integrated PropTech ecosystem. Right. So there are large PropTech companies in India, as you see, uh, various names you can take, right, from Infra Market, Square Yards, Housing, etc. Right, but we are trying to build the largest integrated PropTech ecosystem, wherein there are different businesses, but they are tied together with certain common capabilities in the form of technologies, service capabilities, and sometimes even capital at play, and eventually data, right? So that's what defines us as a PropTech ecosystem. And our vision is very simple, right? So we are actually kind of, our vision is tied at the macro level, which is tied to the India story, which says that by 2030 we should be a 8 to 10 trillion dollar economy. Typically, in most mature and developed or large economies, real estate or the property sector is somewhere around 12 to 13% of the economy. So by 2030, property sector itself should be a $1 trillion market, or a sector, as you might call it. And today, if we just put that in context, India is a nearly a $5 trillion economy. Real estate or a property segment is estimated somewhere around $400 billion mark. Where is PropTech today in that? Right, PropTech is roughly around two odd percentage of the $400 billion market in revenue terms, right? Which sizes up to around $5 billion in terms of revenue today. But what we see is that this 2% is likely to go to a 10% contribution, as in PropTech becoming $100 billion market by 2030, right? So this $5 billion to the $100 billion journey is what is driving our mission, our vision to be one of the leaders in the PropTech space by 2030. And to do that, we are convinced that we have to grow as an ecosystem. There are a few pockets that, of opportunities that we have identified ourselves, and which we are trying to focus on, right? So in a nutshell, that summarizes what our vision is. Yes, we are a listed company as well, right? So that adds a different color to how we are present and how we operate, right?
Thank you. Hiren, I wanted to divide between the real estate and the PropTech. So when you say 2% is PropTech, what does PropTech mean? How do you differentiate it
Yeah.
between real estate and PropTech? What qualifies as a legit PropTech for you?
uh, this also ties in with how we have sized up the opportunity, right? So the definition of PropTech was something that we dabbled ourselves also very early on. uh, and what we thought is that very simple definition is where any business which has which is either led or enabled by technology in the property sector, should be a PropTech business. Now, whether it's a startup, it's a business, that's a second level of differentiation that you could put in. But within, and how do you kind of further refine that definition as to what about what businesses are we talking about, right? And this also leads us to how we actually build that the sizing, right? So what we say is that either a property asset, which could be a residential, could be commercial, could be industrial, could be warehousing, could be a hospitality, could be retail, right? So whatever is that property asset has a life cycle, right? So then that life cycle starts with creation, starts with its commercialization or monetization, and gets consumed, right? Now, broadly, those are the three stages of a life cycle of a property asset. And then anything that deals with these three activities in its life cycle as a business, which is led by tech or kind of predominantly enabled by tech, then we kind of call it as a PropTech business, right? So that's how we define PropTech. And
Got it.
we have, yeah.
Also, could you shed some more light on what does an integrated PropTech ecosystem mean? See, there are so many point solutions. There are individual
Yeah.
players who are trying to solve one piece of the puzzle. What is your definition of an integrated PropTech ecosystem? And do you think, because I'm having these conversations because there are a lot of point solutions which are failing,
Yeah.
and everybody says that it's not, the playbook cannot be a point solution. The playbook has to be integrated whole. Could you shed some light there?
Yeah. See, fundamentally, what we see or where the opportunity lies in the PropTech sector is linked to where value gets exchanged in the property sector, right? Now, where does the value get exchanged? It's typically in the buy-sell transactions. It's typically in the the rental transactions. It is in the financialization of the property assets, which include providing capital when a project gets launched, or when you do commercial leasing, commercial selling, etc., right? Now, all of these transactions are very intense transactions, one on account of the size of money getting exchanged, second on account of the number of people who are participating in those journeys, right? Third, the amount of intensity that goes behind in terms of the time spent, the in decision making, etc., right? Now, what that means is that there are pockets of mini transactions also happening along the way, right? So there is for example advisory, a real estate advisory firm or a channel partner, or in the very ground level, we call them as brokers or agents, channel partners, etc., who are functioning. Then there are professional services providers, then there are platforms, marketplaces, right? So many participants who are playing the journey, playing in that journey. Second, there is an offshoot of some new transaction also happening when, let's say, when a buy sell transaction happens, right? Which means a residential, for example, a residential asset is getting sold either by a developer to a new buyer, or an existing homeowner selling it to a new homeowner, right? In each of these transactions, after the asset has exchanged hands, somebody is either redoing the home or the apartment. There's a lot of furnishing happening. There's somebody moving from relocating from house A to house B. So there are all those ancillary services which are happening. So somebody needs a movers or package, somebody needs a legal advice, somebody needs to kind of you know up, backing up on the how do you do the interiors and etc., right? So how do you source the raw materials for the interiors, right? So there are all these double dip opportunities happening across the different types of transactions. And sometimes the decision of the buyer is also dependent, so many players in that participate in the transaction. That's why what happens is, one, there is an opportunity that if you are present in one transaction, you can actually cash on other opportunities. Second is that to conduct the transaction, you need so many different players, and so there are interlinkages of the clientele, interlinkages of the selling party, right? So for example, when you say buy sell, again, it's not just about the developer and the buyer, but a channel partner also comes in, a bank also comes in to say that, hey, I can provide you financing. A legal person comes in and say that, oh, you need to do due diligence on the property, right? So there is all these double dip opportunities, and each of this opportunity requires a different set of capability to build that, right? Both in terms of tech, both in terms of the core competency or the core skill required, and hence you need different businesses to come together to one to leverage the opportunity, but second and more important, I would say, is to provide that unified experience to the buyer or the developer in the first place.
Got
And
it.
that's why you need an integrated player, not just to survive but to kind of cash on. And sometimes what happens, and just last point on that, sometimes what happens is some of this micro or ancillary opportunities are either small in size or are not individually viable to exist, right, or survive or grow, and hence you need dependency on a larger transaction platform to be latched onto, right? That's why we believe that the success of any venture in PropTech is linked to how it is tied with an ecosystem or a set of other PropTech companies.
Got it. And that ecosystem need not be one player building the integrated whole. It will
Yeah,
always be a partnership with specialists who are part of
correct,
that, but they have to join hands to provide a seamless experience, isn't it?
correct. And those those specialists are either founders, or sometimes it's also data, right? How
Hmm.
does data seamlessly flow across different businesses, across different, and it's just to add to the intelligence of the overall transaction, right? So that's also important there.
Got it. Got it. Let's unpack the India story a little more, because that is the crux of our conversation today. So you mentioned about how big is this opportunity, $10 trillion economy by 2030. Okay, 1 trillion. Only PropTech is sorry, real estate is only going to be that,
Yeah,
and PropTech is going to be a big driver towards that.
yeah,
So let's look at where are the areas, because PropTech is, again, as we said, it's a wide topic. Where are the areas that you see the opportunity are today and in the coming years?
right. So to do that, and as you said, that's the title of demystifying the PropTech landscape, right? uh, the thread that we picked up was to track, as I said, the property asset, right? So we picked up a residential asset, we picked up a commercial asset, and then, as I said, there are three journeys. The other three names of the journeys are, first is the development stage, then there's the monetization stage, and then there is the consumption stage. Now, typically in the development stage, you have right from designing of the property, right, where an architect, right from architect to an interior designer comes into play. There is a developer who is getting capital into play, right? So that's the second level of value exchange that happens. Probably prior to that, I'm not going in specific sequence, but let's say the third item is the purchase of the land, right? So the land is an essential part there. Fourth is the construction part, right? So these are all probably four major parts of the development stage. There are two others. One is labor, and third is, sixth is the raw materials, right? So broadly, these are the six components of the development journey. And if you see today, there's an infra market, which is probably the largest prop tech business in India today, with 12,000 odd crores of revenue, roughly $1.5 billion in revenue size, right? It's predominantly in construction tech. It's a marketplace. So I would consider that as the largest prop tech company in India today, right?
Nice.
Now, then there are fintechs in PropTech, in the sense providing financing platforms for developers, mostly through AIFs right now, right?
So are you? So
And
have you moved from the development stage to the
I'm
monetization
still in the
stage?
development. I'm still in the
In
development,
development.
right? Because
In the development there is fintech players. Got it. Mhm.
yes, right. Then, so fintech has an overlapping role across the three journeys, right? So that's
Got
the
it.
common part of fintech. So
So
moving to second stage.
what are the fintech use cases for development stage?
So typically, as I said, the biggest use case is for developers and investors to come together on a platform, on a tech platform, The financial instruments could be an AIF, could be any other regulated instrument that allows exchange of capital. So that's broadly the fintech part. Uh, that's one fintech part. Other fintech part is how can you provide supply chain or sourcing solutions for developers and contractors to interact with their vendors, which could be raw material suppliers, could be labor suppliers, etc., right? So those are kind of other fintech platforms that could come up, right? So broadly, these are the couple of large fintech plays that I can see in this stage, right?
Got it.
Now, second stage is monetization stage. Monetization broadly means buy sell, could be leasing and rentals, and third could be leveraging the asset, right? So very simple definitions, and then you can further go down deeper into each of this. So sales and marketing, the first stage, which is selling of the asset. If you are a developer, you would go in a much professional manner in the form of a marketing team, a marketing budget. You'll have a sales team, you'll have a channel partner network, you'll be listed on, and that's where PropTech comes in, where you'll be listed on digital marketplaces, and you would have broker app solutions, broker aggregation solutions, etc., right? So that's the PropTech play there. Then in the case of secondary buy sell transaction, which is also part of the sales, wherein a C2C transaction is happening, right? So I have a house and Ravi wants to buy it, or I have a house, I want to sell it, and Ravi is a potential buyer. Where do I find Ravi? Right. Similarly, Ravi wants to buy a house. Where do I find the houses? Which is, and Ravi is very particular that I want to buy a ready-to-move-in property in a particular locality, right? So that's where C2C marketplaces come. That's where C2C brokerage comes, and that's where the digital, presence in the form of one marketplaces, digital channel partners, or non-broking or zero brokerage platforms come into play, right? So that's the sales part of the monetization stage.
So in the
Second
US,
part,
around 10% of buy sell is FSBO, for sale
yeah,
by owner without the brokers. So
correct.
is that a big thing also in India, or is the brokers are doing the bulk of the transactions?
I think brokers are doing bulk of the transactions. Why? Because it's, as an individual, it's difficult to reach out to the best buyer.
Got it.
Yes, a few transactions obviously happen in the same network and etc. In I'm just saying anecdotally, there are certain residential housing complexes where they are in high in demand. So the moment somebody puts out to the sale, it gets consumed within the fraternity itself,
Within the
right?
network, yeah, got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
before they're
But
listed out in public, yeah.
correct. But even if that is the case, the buyer still wants to, know what is the best available price, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
you would still want to reach out to a broker network. And today, yes, people are listing on the digital marketplaces as well, right? So that's also increasing. But yeah, the direct C2C is still a challenge that needs to be solved for, and that's one of the areas of opportunity also in terms of growth, right? So that's one big area that we are looking at. So that was one, second part of the or the first part of the
Monetization,
monetization stage.
buy sell.
The second, yeah, buy
Yeah,
sell. Right? Second part is the rental leasing, right? So I want to lease out the asset if it's a commercial place, or I want to rent it out if it's a residential place. So there are tenants coming on one side, there are homeowners coming on the other side. A big part of that is also student living, student because there are buildings which are custom built for PG rental or student housing, etc. Right, so that's also part of the PropTech or the monetization of the property part, right? And the third part is the leveraging part, right? So you have a house, you want to finance it, or you want to take a loan on that. That's one part of it. But the larger part is obviously when you buy a asset, when you buy a property, uh, you're short of cash, you want to go on a mortgage, you want to buy, kind of go with a financing deal. So there are platforms which enable buyers to reach out to the lending banks and etc., right? So those platforms are also in there. So a lot of what we call them as the DSAs in India, right? So which are distribution agents of the financing banks. They are going digital. There are digital marketplaces where you can procure a housing loan, etc., right? So that is also one play where you can do a matchmaking between a bank and the home buyer, right? So So that's the leveraging part, right? And the third part is, no, I think I covered all the three in the
All the three,
monetization
yeah. Buy, sell, leasing, rentals, leveraging assets.
and
Yeah.
leveraging assets, right?
This is on the monetization, and the third one is consumption. You mentioned, right?
Consumption, right? So consumption is where, and this is where we are a little strict about defining what comes under this, because uh, at some point of time there are furniture, uh, you know e-commerce furniture companies also getting counted under PropTech, right? Which we are trying not to count. Why? Because what we are saying is, any if it's to do with the property, right? So let's say you want to do interiors in the, so that's where a live space or a home lane comes in, right? So that's, I think, fair enough to count them as PropTech. There are property management companies or platforms which help you repair, to do repairs, maintenance, facility management, etc. Right? Fair. I think it's very fair to count them under this act. Then there are services where you could manage your property asset digitally. Now that's not a very big opportunity as of today, or I don't see many players in India as of today. But in markets like US, you'd be aware, right? So there's a First Page and Yardies and all that, right? So those kind of players are also eyeing the India opportunity, and I'm sure they'll come in, in this geography at some point of time, right? So
Mm.
that, I think, fits into this segment where you are able to manage very simple things, right? So right from, let's say, a document locker where you can have your entire trail of agreements, or the titles, etc., saved digitally. If you are able to manage all your property related bills, which include property taxes, your maintenance bills, etc., etc., right? If you are able to get access to vendors who can do property management for you, I think those are things that we would count under this third bucket, right? So back to those three buckets. If there's a development, monetization, and consumption
Consumption.
stage, what we saw is that we first remove the PropTech part, right? We say this is where value gets exchanged, and then see where individually, where does the what is the extent of PropTech in that, and then we sized up at the national level. We also saw which players are present across which bucket, so that we can triangulate the size of the data, and that's how we reached at the $5 billion revenue number. Now
Mm.
today, roughly around 80% of the PropTech market sits in the residential and commercial assets, and within that, around 80% sits in the development and the monetization stage, right? So roughly
Yes.
64, 60 odd percent is in that. If you do a 3 by 3 of asset size and the three stages, then development, monetization on one axis, and residential and commercial on other axis. If we combine those and create a square within the overall PropTech space, we are looking at a 64% market size. This is
Mm.
as of today.
Got it.
What is this going to be in 2030, right? So, and our bet is that this 5 billion box, the larger box, is going to become a 100 billion box. Within that, the 64% box is going to become an 80% box, right?
Mm.
So we are looking at an $80 billion PropTech opportunity in the residential and commercial assets, right between the development and the monetization space, right? Now, just if you do the numbers on a back of the envelope, you'll realize that while this focus area 64 or a 60, yeah, 64, 65% going to 80% is a great opportunity, but the rest, which we are kind of not looking at the moment, is not a small opportunity either, and it's also growing at a very fast pace,
You
right?
mean the
So when you
consumption?
look at the other
You mean
subsegments, right, the minimum growth over the 7-8 year period is somewhere around 25 to 30% also on an
okay.
annual basis, right? So that itself is a big opportunity. So we are not saying that hey, don't go there, right? But these are the larger opportunities and the faster growing opportunities. And just to give you kind of size of sub opportunities within that, so construction tech, and that's where, let's say, the infra market player that I talked about, right? So construction tech today is around $1.5 billion market, right? Of the 5 billion, 5.5 billion that we talked about, 1.5 is in construction tech.
Right.
That is going to become a $26 billion market,
Wow.
right, by 2030. The next biggest is intuitively the distribution tech, which is in the sales and marketing part of the monetization bucket. right?
Right.
So that is roughly around 750 odd million dollars, $750 million, $0.75 billion, which will go on to become 18 odd billion dollars market by 2030, right?
Mm,
The next biggest would be rental tech, right? And that too specifically residential rental tech, which today is roughly around 350 odd million dollars, right? And
mm,
likely to go to around 12 and a half to $13 billion by 2030, right?
wow.
So if you ask me what are the top three buckets, these are the top three buckets, right? Now, as of today, one bucket which, I mean, I'll just stick my neck and call out is the co-working space, which gets counted as a prop tech, right? Is
Mm,
also $1 billion market today. It
mm.
will grow, right? It will grow well. Uh, as I said, somewhere around 30-35% CAGR, it should grow, and that takes co-working to a 3 billion to, $3 to $5 billion market. I assume my maths is correct, but I think that's what I recollect. So around three and a half billion dollar market would be co-working, right? So
So
one,
you see co-working growing. Sorry, I'm interrupting you because I was having the conversation with Murli also. Because
yeah,
many co-working are still bleeding, right? So is this a gestation period that they're going through? And Murli said that he feels student housing has bigger opportunity
yeah.
than city dwelling and professional housing and for co-working.
No, as I said, the opportunities are large in both, right? And rental tech is where the co-living fits into our definition.
Got it.
So very much in agreement with Murli in terms of I don't know what his numbers are, but as I said, we expect that market to grow from $350 million today to around 12 and a half, $13 billion market. I mean,
Mm,
co-working, what my point of view, and that's where I said, I'll stick my neck out and say is that when we compare India as an economy today, right? And somewhere I was looking up the stats of the stats of what is the office, office space in India today versus what it's in US, right? So if I add up across the country, typically the research firms calculate office space, grade A office space only in the top 8 metros, right? We have tried to extrapolate it at pan India level. So today there is a 1.4 billion square feet of office space in India today, right?
mm,
Now, now a similar number for US is around 5.5 billion square feet,
got it.
right? So what we see as you know as the economy grows, as white collar staff comes in, right? The organic growth of office space itself is a 25-30% number,
Got it.
right, in value terms, right? So there is definitely, probably in terms of volumetric square feet terms, it may grow at a 15 odd percent year on year till, but then there is also value element going up, right? So when you add both of them, we are expecting a 25-30% in value terms growth in co-working, right? Because you just take a proportion, right? So not everybody, and there are a lot of startups coming in, right? So we'll have more startups coming in who want an agile workplace, right? So you don't know whether I may need 10,000 square feet today, but tomorrow I'll need a 1 lakh square feet, right? So that's where co-working as a solution fits in, right? So that I think will continue. Co-working also includes managed offices, right? So
Mm,
even larger enterprise companies are going for the managed office solution in tier B cities, right? So there are players, and I think you also covered one of the funding that happened around $7 million with DevX,
yes.
right? So they are
True.
also in
Yes. Yeah.
their forte is to go behind the tier B cities and towns to build such managed offices, right? So that opportunity is large, right? It's not as fast growing as a co-living, as Murli pointed out, and we
Right.
agree with him,
Got it.
right?
And what kind of businesses you would you like to see coming up in these sectors that you just mentioned? Because I'm sure as an investor, you might be frustrated at lack of activity, startup activity, or founder activity happening, right? So which are those sectors that you think should be coming up, but it is not coming up enough?
Yeah. So one correction: we are not frustrated. Why? Because now that we know the canvas, right? We
Mm,
know that okay, there's construction tech, there is a rental tech, there is a the distribution tech and the fintech in PropTech, right? So for us, for the next 2 3 years, these are the focus buckets, and there's
Okay,
good enough activity happening there, right?
got it.
So personally, at Aurum Proptech level, we are not really unhappy. Yes, we would have wanted more, because the entire network effects is something that helps you also grow, right? Even if
Mm,
competition comes in, there is so much to be taken from the table that it's more the merrier kind of a situation, right? So
mm,
that way, yes, we would want to see more competition.
mm,
Secondly, I mean, on a serious note to your question, where would I want to see more? And then this is where I try to see how PropTech has evolved in other geographies, specifically US, UK, and uh, we. It's difficult to get visibility of what's happening in Chinese markets, but we still get some idea about it. So there are 2 3 areas that we would want things to happen. One is, digitization of transactions, right? And I think everybody is behind this, right? Because the numbers are, just mind-boggling, right? And I think a lot of PropTech founders have also called out the opportunity, and there are all these mega trends. One, at the macro level, economy growing. Second macro trend is urbanization, which needs so many housing, and when you have to do fast transaction, tech is the way to go, right? So one, to do that, at the back end, the entire transaction that happens is still heavily offline, right? So
mm,
that that problem needs to be solved. Second is is that we are in a peculiar state where the residential rental yields are around 2.5 to 3.5% across major cities, right?
mm,
And I met a few global investors, and they said, why isn't fractionalization of residential assets happening? And the first answer that comes up to mind is the rental yields in residential assets, right? So even if you go for short term rentals, the yields go up to 5 6%, right?
right.
So that's where I don't know what can happen, but I think maybe some intervention, some business models could help to do that. In a way, short term rentals is doing that, right? So that's one thing that's my wishful thinking.
Mm,
And overall, again, I think data could solve this problem, where overall there is a trust deficit in India when we do you know a real estate transaction, right? So property
mm,
transaction, right? So, and that happens because at the back end, I think one, transactions have slowly and gradually started getting digital in nature. We are far away from that. Second, land records, property records, title records, etc., right? So they need a lot of digitization. Trail needs to happen, so that a lot of time gets wasted in due diligence. And I'm consciously saying
mm,
wasted because uh, I personally have gone through those diligence exercises myself, both for my organizations as well as for myself. It takes time to get the data out first, and then
mm,
working on the data. So I think that's, if you could just shorten that step of
right.
data availability at your fingertips, then the rest of the decisions could also happen faster, right? So it's spending 4 weeks in due diligence of a residential or a commercial real estate asset is given here, right? So it's assumed, right?
Mm.
So that's something that we could do away with. That does away with a lot of inefficiencies in the sector, right? So
And you
that's
can do that
something.
with tech. You can solve that with tech. There are so many due diligence platforms on our platform.
Yeah,
They have listed, but they are mostly. I don't see anybody from the from India, but I see from Europe and USA lots of due diligence platform,
yeah,
reducing the time of due diligence with tech, with the help of tech.
absolutely. That's a big opportunity in India. Yeah,
Excellent. You just a plug because Hiren mentioned about the kind of technology solutions and innovations happening in other parts of the world, and this is exactly what we are solving in, because within our platform we have around close to 1,000 products now launched, and we are adding in the next quarter. We'll have close to 10,000 products globally, and with products the leadership also comes in, because it's very truly tied, because the community is tied in. We have also protected community for VIPs, for founders, so that they're not spammed with non-founders, just to keep the quality alive. So here is an opportunity for you to learn and take inspiration from what are the activity innovations that is happening cross border in other countries and take inspiration. So, and you can engage with them within our community. In fact, we just last week we built the Vietnam community. Yesterday, I added one prop tech a person from Bangladesh. She's looking for funding. By the way, Hiren, could I ask that the investor community in India, are they also open to invest in other neighboring countries like Bangladesh? Because I've been getting a lot of questions from there that, hey, can we get funding, or is there any regulation, or is there something that prevents you from doing it?
See, specific countries might have a regulation hurdle, right? But overall, and not commenting on specific countries, I think overall, somebody who's looking at India, right? The enormity of opportunity is such
You do
that
not look anywhere else. Yeah,
even if there are other, yeah, I mean, while the growth element might be higher in those, the scalability kind of plays. You'd rather spend that much amount of bandwidth behind such a large opportunity, unless you are based out of those, or you are at a global level where that geography also becomes a part of your overall, let's say, a South Asia or a
APAC. Yeah,
Asia story, APAC story, right? So if that is the case, then yes, investors would look at.
got it.
Uh,
The other thing that you mentioned was you know that there is enough startup activity happening, but a lot of founders or newbie founders or wannabe founders, okay, they do not know about these dynamics that you know. So you have done your research, you know the landscape. Are you also playing a role in guiding the ecosystem on where these founders should be focusing on and stuff like that? Are educating the market, so to say?
So, very honest answer. I wish we could do more. Right. We try to do as much as we can. One, because now we have a portfolio to manage. Right. So bulk of our bandwidth, right from Ashish, myself, our CFO, and our exec director Unka. Right. So we, four of us spend a lot of time with all these founders to learn from them, to constantly asking them tough questions in terms of where does the next growth lie, how do we bring in organization changes, how do we bring maturity, how do we bring governance, etc. Right? That's the role we play with the existing portfolio. But to your question, we, even though our approach is now more selective in terms of adding more business into the PropTech ecosystem, that doesn't stop us or the founders to come and have a chat with us, right? So we are on a monthly basis, we have good in-depth discussions with some of the other founder, right? Yes, if the immediate fit is not there, we ensure that we keep in touch with each other, and when the right time comes in, we can again shake hands if possible, right? So that way we do keep in, and whenever those discussions happen, right, typically our approach is that we don't have a flurry of questions to trouble the founders. We are also learning, we are also asking questions, we are also understanding, and in the process we also end up giving unsolicited advice to the founders, etc. Right? So we keep doing that as such. In parallel, on personally, all of us have in our network founders, ex-founders, current founders, etc. Right? uh, who on a personal basis we are always in touch with. In fact, our founders themselves are so much very well networked in the, not just the PropTech but overall startup ecosystem. Some of them are official advisors, mentors to other startup founders and etc. Right? So as the Aurum PropTech ecosystem point of view, yes, definitely. Personally myself, I'm doing, I think, probably very little compared to what the founders themselves are doing for the PropTech and the overall startup ecosystem, right? So that I think, and they are very approachable. I can say that on behalf of them. Uh, uh, they may not be really active on LinkedIn per se, but I think they are very much approachable. You can always reach out to them. They share a lot of references to us to have a chat, evaluate a business, etc. Right? So bulk of new contacts in the startup ecosystem also have been coming through these founders, right?
Got it. Now, this conversation itself, the way you broke down the entire landscape, is like a 101 a series for anybody to understand the landscape, right? So I wish there's more content get created, and if your hands are full, okay, we could
Yeah.
volunteer to collaborate and
Yeah.
create really good content and ebooks and stuff like that for the community. Happy to do that as well.
No, I
In
think
fact,
we should, yeah, we'll look at that opportunity. And just to, since you brought this up, we are kind of trying to bring this out as a, as a research note or a thought note, right? So it's not our, bread and butter, but yes, we think that this will help the overall PropTech ecosystem, and we are actually in the process of socializing what our thoughts are, and
got
just
it.
trying to ensure that if there is something that we are missing, we would also want to incorporate in our thinking as well as in our articulation, right? So it I will never miss an opportunity to even discuss what's quote unquote WIP from a articulated or a documented note point of view. So
Got it.
we'll stay in touch on that. Yeah.
So we are good partners with Pi Labs. Pi Labs is one of the most respected and large PropTech VCs from Europe. In fact, they opened their now they have expanded to also to Asia. So they have a
Yeah.
research wing led by Luke Graham. Luke Graham is a very good friend
Okay.
of mine. He has been on
Yeah.
my podcast multiple times, and they
Okay.
write research on industries and publish it, and so that they can educate the market. And as a result, they also get to invest better in better opportunities. So that's how it is. I know we are running out of time, 9 more minutes left. Maybe I could also touch upon Aurum's investment thesis, like what do you look for? What is
Hmm.
core to your investment decision making? What kind of startups do you look for? What kind of founders do you look for? Maybe shed some light there.
Sure. I think I'll try to be crisper. Bulk of my answer is already covered, right? So first definition is that one, PropTech. Second has to be someone who adds to the ecosystem, right? Some business that adds to the ecosystem. How can that happen? Either through what tech they are building, or what uh, deep tech, what is it, AI, ML, etc., right? So what are the nuances of the tech in that business? Second, link to the first, or the tech part is, how strong is the data capability, right? So because, as I said, the key thing to change or revolutionize property sector in India would be how we treat data, right? And uh, third, but probably a very significantly important aspect, is how viable the business is in terms of not just scalability, but in terms of profitability, right? We are a listed player, so we are a different animal in the entire scheme of things, because we would look at slightly more mature businesses which have a defined path to profitability, where unit economics are actually established, and kind of, we don't believe in vanity metrics, but very simple businesses where we are able to demonstrate top line, EBITDA, and then bottom line eventually, because that's what our when a public market investors ask for, right? So that's broadly our first filtering criteria. But as you rightly pointed out, we can't neglect the most critical part, is which is the founder, or the people who have set up the business and who are running the business, right? So what's their motivation, what's their commitment to the PropTech story, what is their aspiration to grow the business, what is their alignment on running a profitable business, or there are different ways of building scalability, right? So if you think cash burn is the way to go, probably we may not be the right person to talk to, right? But we feel that yes, there is a viable way to grow and scale up a business. Yes, we understand in the early stages there is, to get that exponentiality, there is a cash burner required. We understand that, we let that also happen, but the unit economics and the viability has to be very much established, right? So both of these things are very critical for us to take a call on, how do we go ahead, and the rest is process, right? So the entire screening and analysis of the business models and etc., right? So that's just process.
Got it. And how do you get access to PropTech deals and ventures? Like I know you are closely tied to the ecosystem, but still, how do you source your deals from?
So I would see that in two phases, right? So when we started, as I said, May 21 is when the first investment happened. That time we were more proactive in the market, because one, no one knew us, no one knew what we are trying to build. So we reached out to a good number of startups. We kind of both direct as well as through the network, right? And Once we kind of did 3 4 investments, and then I think people started realizing who we are, and then the approach, without doing anything, kind of changed the other way around, where we started getting a lot of references uh, from network, from bankers, from founders who directly approached either Ashish or Onka or myself, right? So that's the other source of deals. And as you rightly said, founders themselves bring in the references, right? So I think since our approach right now, since we have painted the canvas and where we know the opportunity lies, right? So we are more kind of focused on a certain set of gaps that we would want to fill in at the later stage, which could be construction tech, which could be in the development stage predominantly, right? So our distribution and rental tech businesses, we have a good presence right now, which could help us scale up, right? So that's broadly the thought process right now.
Got it. Before we end, could you tell us a bit about your portfolio and the ecosystem that you have today? What kind of companies are in your portfolio?
Right. So see, linked to the canvas that we talked about, right? So, and then the subsegments of that. So we are right now organizing our portfolio into 3 segments. One is the rental tech segment, second is the distribution tech, and third is fintech proptech combination, right? So in the rental tech, I can say that we are the largest residential rental player, proptech player in India right now, with a Nestaway and Hello World combined as tech platforms for rental journeys. Nestaway caters more for the shared family rental opportunity, and it's a completely tech platform which kind of matches a homeowner with a tenant. Today, it has around 16 or thousand rental units which have been rented out through its platform. Another few thousand units are kind of available to be rented out. Hello World is a co-living. It's one of, I think, the third largest co-living player in the country right now. It has got somewhere around 13,000 beds which are live uh, in the market. By revenue, I think we are the second largest co-living player in the country right now. So those are 2 large rental tech opportunities. We also have a SaaS product under Montech Ventures, where, and by the way, which is also there on your platform already,
Yes.
PropTechBuzz, right?
Yeah.
So they have a house monk, they have the office monk, and now
Yeah.
the mall monk. So it's a SaaS product which is on offer to uh, either anybody who has got multiple properties to manage which have been rented out or leased out, right? So
Got it.
both in the residential space and the commercial space. And now they have also built a solution for mall management, right? So that's
Got
also getting a really good traction. So this is my rental tech portfolio. Roughly, if I add it up, it's just around 18 odd million dollars worth of ARR as of today,
it.
right?
Nice.
Uh, so that's one. Second bucket is the distribution tech, as we call it. There, one of the largest products in our umbrella is a real estate CRM called Sell.do. It is the largest real estate CRM in the country right now in India, right? It's got again ARR of roughly $2.5 million as of today, and it has served more than 1,000 developers in its journey. It is, if you go to g2.com, it features in the top. It's the second most easiest CRM across the globe, and it's one of the is rated as one of the best real estate CRM globally, right? So that's how big Sell.do is. We have another company called Aurum Analytica, which in its sector is one of the most premium data science led distribution companies. So it enables developers, residential developers, to reach out to their target set of buyers, right? So through their AI ML algorithms, they are able to bring in the right set of potential buyers to the developers, and their conversion rates are just untouchable in the market right now, right? So
Mm.
that's the kind of data science that the founders have put behind the entire business. Third business in this bucket is what we call as Beyond Walls, right? So that's a broker aggregation platform. It's based out of Pune today around, and it's just also building its base in Mumbai. So there are around 7,500 channel partners or brokers, registered on the platform. Cumulatively, it has actually enabled transactions worth 6,000, 6,000 units of properties have got transacted through that platform as of now, right? So that's my third largest player, and then we have two, three other products which are in the just POC or the launch stage, right? Which are again in the transaction journey. And the last bucket, which is fintech, come PropTech. So one, we have a financing platform for developers to reach out to investors, right? And here the financial instrument is an AIF, but the tech product is in-house built product called Arjavas, which kind of not just evaluates a property but also the life cycle of the property through the developers for the investors to track and see their not only what is the track record of the investment, but also how well the developer is progressing on the project, right? So it's a one of its kind tool in the market available. Second platform is this is a fractional, which was earlier a fractional ownership platform only. Now it has become a more diverse reality investment platform. We call it Aurum Bisex, where fractional ownership is one of the businesses. It also enables not just developers but any entity, any enterprise who has a property asset and wants to leverage that, right? So so that's through, it could be NCDs, could be any financial instrument. So the platform acts as a distribution partner for those entities, right? So again, heart of it has to be the property, right? So that's the second fintech business that we have. And third is
Ariman
in-house.
was on my podcast. Ariman was on my
Yes,
podcast.
we would have elaborated on that story in
Yeah.
each ways, right? So that's the second, and third is the Aurum Kuberex, which is digitizing or enabling the digital matchmaking between the bank and a home buyer, right? So
Hmm.
that's for the financing of the home loans, right? So broadly, these are the key businesses that we have under portfolio as well.
Nice. So I see part of your portfolios are on a platform, part are not. I think you should get all of them onto a platform, because what we
Yeah,
are also doing is we are creating a landscape with categories, so that from
correct.
the buyer side, when they come to our platform, they will be able to filter it
Yeah,
out and say, okay, who are the CRM players? So even though we are not as popular as G2 or Capteras of the world, but we are actually uh, trying to define what the landscape is for different
yeah,
countries,
yeah, yeah.
and you should definitely be there. I know we are out of time, but I think the entire effort would be lost if I did not ask the audience question, because we did an AMA and we got one audience question at
Sure.
least. Otherwise, it will
Yeah.
kill the purpose of doing the AMA. So let me just quickly share. I think you can see my screen, right? So we have one question coming from um, Nikunj, and Nikunj says, why do we not see more of PropTech startups in India as compared to Western countries? How should we
Mhm.
encourage PropTech startups in India? I think I briefly mentioned, but maybe you would want to answer that.
Yeah, I think partly we have covered the some of the reasons, right? One is the trust deficit, and second is the lack of data. Third, what we don't sometimes recognize, the one metric which I called out was the size of the office space in India versus in US, right? Now, for example, New York itself has somewhere around 450 million square feet of office space, right? Now, combined grade A office space in India across the top 8 cities is around 750, 800 million square feet, right? So, which is, New York is 50% of the 6 cities combined, and only, so that's the quantum of commercial. On the residential side, if you see, there are in India, if we extrapolate the numbers that we are getting recorded in the tier or the top 8 cities, around roughly 3.7 or 370,000 transactions happen in a year uh, in the top 8 cities. If we extrapolate that to pan India, roughly around, the higher end of the number would be around 3.5 million residential transactions happening in India, with a population of 1.4 billion. US, with probably, if I'm correct, 20-25% of the India population, does 5.6 million transactions, including new sale as well as resale, every year.
Mm.
Right, that's been the trend for the last 2-3 years.
Right.
Right. So, yes, we are on that journey. One, why is this number important? Because one, people are wanting to look at scalability. Second, uh, you know to achieve that scalability, there are 2-3 things that need to happen. Right, one is, what is the actual number of transactions that are happening? What is the value of transactions that's happening? uh, Third, what is the efficiency in scaling up? Right, so if the transactions are going to be so intense and kind of offline, then we need solution that can kind of make them faster and digitized, and that will suddenly kind of grow the PropTech universe much faster. Right, so broadly, I think that's the crux of why we see what you see in terms of not so much of active or a relative PropTech presence in terms of startups. Right, so probably I would, if I were to hunch my, if I have to take some hunches, I think this 2-3 reasons would be the key criteria.
Got it. One of the things that we also offer PropTech companies is go-to-market US services. Okay, so those who have succeeded in the regional market, but one of the things we always educate is think global from day one. Don't just think that your market. So, is this something that, as part of your thesis, you encourage PropTech? I know Indian market is huge by itself,
Yeah,
but do you also
yeah.
encourage them to think global and go beyond India?
I think at the right stage, all of our businesses have that thought in the
Potential.
mind,
Got it.
right? So yes, it's though I wouldn't say in the short term, next 1 or 2 years, uh, frankly, even with this kind of numbers, we feel that we're just too small yet, right? Yes, though we are relatively big, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to be kind of worked on, and hence I think once we have a good sizable presence in India, definitely we are going global.
Excellent. And do you also look for acquisitions? Like, do you eye on good small companies that are ready to be acquired and to be nurtured and stuff like that?
So in fact, all of our investments are majority stake investments, right? So
Got it.
I'd say
Yeah,
they
yeah.
are acquisitions in a way.
Got it.
Having said that, it's the founders continue to run the show
Got
on
it.
the operational basis, right? So minimum stake we take is 51%, right?
Got it.
It's all linked to our being publicly listed and all that, right? So, and we are not playing just a financial investor role, right?
Got
So
it.
we play the ecosystem collaboration role, right? So
Got it. Well, this brings us to the end of a very, very thought-provoking. As I said, this is PropTech India 101. I have had so many conversations. I don't think anybody did a better job than you in breaking this down in a very simplistic manner. I wish, as I said, I'm committing to join hands with you to create a really good ebook on the ecosystem, and that will be, I think, very, very, very valuable to the ecosystem here. And for all the PropTech founders who are listening, if you are a PropTech founder, you have a product, list it out on the platform. More and more buyers and developers are coming to our platform to educate themselves on the landscape, to review the products, to see how they solve the value proposition, the demo videos, and everything we have provided. So please join hands there. Hiren, thank you again for your time. This was really, really wonderful.
no, thank you so much, Ravi, and all your support is very much appreciated. We'll definitely stay in touch on that, right?
Thank you so much, Hiren. See you around. Bye bye.
Bye bye.